The Lumix S5ii and X5ii have both received a brand new firmware update this week, which you can download now from the Lumix website with some amazing new features aimed towards photography. Manual focus has been made much easier by allowing you to view a full screen magnified image of what it is you are trying to focus on, but the main thing I'm most excited about is handheld high resolution mode. This is a feature that is available on most Lumix cameras, and on the Lumix S5ii and S5ii, it allows you to shoot up to 96 megapixel images up from the standard 24 megapixel images. However, previously you were only able to use high res mode when you were using the camera with a tripod, but now thanks to this latest firmware update you can do it fully handheld and with a shutter speed of up to 1 second. 1 second, fully handheld exposures and 96 megapixels. 4 times more megapixels. When you think about it, that sounds pretty mad. To do the update, you're going to want to download the firmware from the Lumix website, and I will link the page down below in the description so you can go and head straight over to it. And then you're going to want to drag that bin file onto your SD card and pop it into your camera. Head into the menu, go to the firmware version, hit update, and the camera will do its thing. It is super easy. Once you've done that, you're ready to take some photos, and you just need to head into the high resolution mode settings and switch on handheld. The weather is a little bit grim outside today, so instead of going outside to test handheld high res mode, I'm just going to take photos of whatever is lying around in here. So we'll get some photos and then compare the high res mode version to a typical 24 megapixel raw image. So I've already set the camera up to shoot in handheld high res mode, and I'm just going to take some photos of this Lego Porsche that I have lying around here. So just going to take a photo as normal, keep nice and still. You'll be able to hear it take 8 photos, and now it is stitching those photos together as we speak. It is working its magic, and as long as you have kept the camera nice and still while you were taking the photos, it will successfully stitch them into one 96 megapixel image, and it will as well give you a normal 24 megapixel image. Try and take some more photos here. We've got this Ricoh film camera. I love this Ricoh film camera. If you do have any movement in your hands, because it is taking 8 photos one after the other, you won't get the nice stable image. The IBIS will have too much work to do. It does an incredible job as it is, but you need to minimize your movement as much as you possibly can to be able to get a nice sharp image. I'm just going to get another image here of the Porsche, but one way that you can ensure that you get a nice stable shot is by pulling your arms into your body. If you're reaching out, then you're naturally going to be moving around and shaking a little bit more, so you want to bury your arms into your body, hold the camera nice and still, take the photo, and then allow the camera to do its thing. You do need a little bit of patience, I won't lie. So I've imported these photos into Lightroom already, and as you can see we have 2 photos of each image, because each time that you take a high resolution mode photo, it gives you a 24 megapixel image of that same 96 megapixel image. So the one on the left is the 96 megapixel image, as that's the bigger file. The one on the right is the 24 megapixel image. I've not edited these at all. All I've done is hit auto so it corrects the exposure. So side by side, there really aren't many differences at all, and you probably wouldn't even notice if no one told you that the one on the left was a 96 megapixel image. It does look slightly more saturated to me. If you look at the 911 badge, it looks a bit more red, a bit brighter. It's minimal differences. You wouldn't notice if no one told you. So I'm just going to zoom in and see if we can actually see any differences. I think this is where you will start to notice the differences, and as you zoom in you can see the one on the left, the 96 megapixel image, does look ever so slightly sharper around the edges. So if you look around the top of the red badge of the 911, it does look sharper. It looks a little bit more mushy around the edge of the 24 megapixel image. So if you were to go in even further, it's not really breaking up the 96 megapixel image. It looks pretty sharp, and we've gone in a long way there. Whereas if we go into a similar amount on the 24 megapixel image, you can see just how pixelated it's starting to get. And bear in mind, we have gone in a very long way on this crop. The 24 megapixel image is holding together very well, but the one on the left, there's a lot more information in there, a lot more megapixels. So if you are wanting to blow up your images massive, and I mean massive, that's where shooting in high res mode does give you the advantage over the 24 megapixel standard image that you would normally be shooting in. What I mentioned before about it being a little bit more saturated, that shows even more when you start to crop in. It is much more saturated on the left than the 24 megapixel on the right. Let's have a look at another image. Let's again zoom in, see how big the differences are. So we'll zoom right into this C. It does start to get just a little bit more pixelated. I cannot exaggerate how far I've cropped into these photos. The 24 megapixel image, you're still going to be able to blow up really big. In fact, I have some 24 megapixel images here. This is a 24 megapixel image and I've got a couple of others there. That is pretty big, and I could have push that even further away, so I could have got it maybe A1 size and you wouldn't be able to know at all. So even though you are normally shooting 24 megapixel images with the S5ii and the S5ii, you still have a lot of flexibility in them to be able to create some huge images. But if you do have that use case where you want to really expand your images, maybe shooting in high resolution mode is going to be the way to go for you. Taking photos in high resolution mode isn't going to give you any advantages in terms of dynamic range or better colors. It's purely going to make a difference in the size of the image that you end up with afterwards, and that's going to have other advantages in terms of the amount of details that you can show in the image. So for example, if you are a product photographer, this might be a really useful feature to have because you might really need to focus in on those minute details and crop in on them occasionally. That's when 96 megapixel high resolution mode might be very useful. There are a couple of things to be aware of when you are shooting in high resolution mode, and one of them is that you don't want to be shooting any moving subjects, because as I mentioned before, with any camera movement, if there is movement within the image, you're going to have the same problem of the camera not being able to stitch together those images because it won't be able to match them up. The same goes for camera movement. As I mentioned before, you really need to make sure that you're keeping the camera as still as possible, and because of that, I've noticed that faster shutter speeds tend to get better results. Even though you can stop the shutter speed down to a second and still get some handheld results using high res mode, the quicker the shutter speed, the better the results I've found, because it means there's less camera movement. And it is impressive that we can get down to a second shutter speed in high resolution mode. A lot of that is down to the IBIS in the camera doing a brilliant job, but there is only a certain amount that you can push the IBIS and still get great results. That's why there is a 1 second shutter speed limit when you are using it handheld, and it physically won't let you select a shutter speed longer than 1 second unless you go back to using it with a tripod. But if you are going to be shooting handheld in high resolution mode at any shutter speed, just be patient with it, because I have had times where it hasn't worked and I've had to retake the photo. So obviously it's not something you're going to want to be using all the time. If you're a sports photographer, just don't even touch it. It's not worth it at all. It's not great for portraits either, because if the subject is moving slightly, they will be blurry. But it is great for product photography, landscapes, as long as you've not got any trees moving in the wind, etc. and things like that. And the fact that it is now available to use handheld as well makes it even more of a useful feature to have in the S5ii and the S5ii, and probably a feature I will think about using a little bit more if I have that use case for it. And I do really like as well that it gives you a 24 megapixel image of the same image at the same time, just as a backup in case that stitched photo is slightly blurry, you still get the 24 megapixel image. I really like that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Is it a feature that you are looking forward to using? Have you used it in the past? Come and say hello. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video.